ओके गाइस, सो ये डेली विजन का जो डॉक्यूमेंट आता है उसका डिस्कशन रहेगा रात के 10 बजे से। मैं ट्राई करता हूँ आधे घंटे में कवर करने के लिए, बट इसलिए थोड़ा सा कभी कभार लंबा लेंदी हो जाता है, सो 10:45 तक। सेकेंडली, ये मंडे टू फ्राइडे इनिशिएटिव है, सैटरडे संडे ऑफ रहता है। कभी कभी इसमें एमसीक्यूज डिस्कस होंगे, वो मैं फेच करके लाऊंगा। उसका कोई पर्टिकुलर साइट नहीं है या कुछ पर्टिकुलर पॉइंट नहीं है जहाँ से एमसीक्यूज आएंगे। एंड लास्ट ऑफ ऑल, सेशन आई विल बी ट्राइंग टू पुट मोस्ट ऑफ द सेशन इन इंग्लिश। द ओनली रीजन बिकॉज मेरा इंग्लिश मीडियम है, सो इंग्लिश में थोड़ा कम प्रेफर करूंगा। सो दिस इज ऑल अबाउट द daily initiative that I would be taking with the permission of Kashyap sir. Okay, so let's start our today's current affair discussion. So the first article is about India ranking 107th out of 121 countries on Global Hunger Index 2022. So GHI is used to measure and track hunger at global, regional, and national levels, and there are 4 parameters to determine its score. 4 parameters. First is undernourishment. Second is under 5 mortality rate. Then there is wasting, and then there is stunting. Okay. It's published by Concern Worldwide and Wealth Hunger Life. So these are the two organizations presently associated with GHI. Key global findings. So global progress against hunger has largely stagnated and is likely to worsen due to overlapping global crises. COVID-19, then the ongoing conflicts across the continents, not only Ukraine, Russia, but also the internal conflicts that we are seeing in the African region. And then there's the ever growing factor of climate change. Now, Africa, south of Sahara, and South Asia have highest hunger levels and are most vulnerable to future shocks and crises. As many as around 830 million people were undernourished in 2021. Related to India, we see a score of 29.1, which is a level of hunger that is serious. At 50, it is extremely dangerous or alarming. So, not that score, but despite that, we are ranking behind all South Asian countries except Afghanistan. In child wasting rate, ours is highest for any country in the world, and prevalence of undernourishment has also risen. There have been improvements in child stunting and child mortality indicators, and Government of India had last year stated that methodology used for GHI was unscientific. Now, we have a parallel Poshan Abhiyan on national level. Now, before COVID, the 1.0 scheme, it targeted for 2% reduction across these 3 parameters: undernourishment, wasting, and stunting. And it specifically put up a target of 25% by 2022. Sorry, 25% by 2022 for stunting only, except that every other parameter had to be decreased by a 2% rate, and there was 3% decrement for anemia. 3% because it was covering more number of people. Not only children were covered under this, young adults and women were also under the coverage. Then COVID came. We saw that we were struggling with the funds as well as the implementation because health workers could not be completely employed in this particular sector. So then they launched 2.0. Presently, we have no targets under 2.0. It only says that the process or the pace that was going upwards and now it's coming down, we have to stop it from declining. We have to produce actions which does not stop the progress from stagnation. That is all in Poshan 2.0. And another important part for Poshan is there are 4 pillars for Poshan. General pillars. The first is use of technology. The second is capacity building. The third is behavioral change using communication. So they are using communication, or this is basically your awareness pillar, right? And the final pillar for Poshan Abhiyan was convergence action planning. So to bring all the stakeholders together to have a uniform or synergical action plannings across all levels. So this is our Poshan Abhiyan, and this is the noting that we get on international level in GHI, right? In NFHS 5, in stunting, we are presently at 35.5%, right? Our aim was 25%, so we are nowhere near that. But there has been a reduction of around 3% in stunting. For wasting, it's around 19%, and for undernourishment, we are presently standing around 32%. So this was all information about this particular sector or this particular theme from Indian point of view. Now moving on, the next article is about foreign university being roped in to give lessons on employability skills. So moving from, there's a move from National Skills Development Cooperation under Skills India Mission, which is to include foreign universities like Harvard Business School, MIT, etc., with an aim to impart employability skills of international standards to cater to high demand for skilled professionals, building strong skilled workforce by enabling candidates from small towns, right, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 towns to benefit from international employability programs at subsidized rates, and then attract capital inflows as big MNCs are looking to set up base here under China plus one strategy, a strategy in which companies avoid investing only in China and diversify their business to alternate destinations. In 2020, India companies had identified skill gaps as their greatest barrier, representing 34% of the challenges they experienced, which now have increased to 60% in 2022. Now, there is a India Skills Report 2022, which is released by VBox. VBox is a collective initiative by a number of organizations, not a particular symposium that you have to remember. Now, according to it, 46.2% of India's youth is highly employable. There's a lack of awareness about current job roles and requirements among youth. Youth focused skill development initiatives. So through National Skill Development Council, we have PM Kaushal Vikas Yojana, we have PM Kaushal Kendra, and then we have India International Skill Centers. Through Directorate General of Training, we have Craftsman Training Scheme, Apprenticeship Scheme, then we have scheme for upgradation of IITs. And finally, we have some other out of the box schemes such as skill loan scheme and Indian Institute of Skills, etc. So this was all about the employability and the move for including now foreign university to give lessons on employability in India. Moving on, the next is about global status of multi-hazard early warning systems, target G report release. So it is released by United Nations Disaster Risk Reduction and World Meteorological Organization, assessing the current global status of MHEWS against target G, one of the 7 targets of Sendai framework. Sendai framework sets a global blueprint for disaster risk reduction and prevention. Target G is about availability of and access to MHEWS and disaster risk information assessments by 2030. So there are a total of 7 targets. We are only discussing about the 7th target itself. Moving on, early warning system. So it is established to reduce harm to people and damage to assets ahead of impending hazards, including storms, tsunamis, etc. 4 elements: risk knowledge, technical monitoring, communication and dissemination of warnings, and community response capability. Then MHEWS address several hazards that may occur alone, simultaneously, or cascadingly. Key highlights of report: increasing frequency and intensity of extreme weather events, disasters due to human-induced climate change and unpredictable weather events. Half of the countries globally are not protected by MHEWS. There are 3.6 billion people living in areas of high vulnerability to climate change and related disasters. Recommendations to achieve target G: investing on all elements of early warning system, especially in risk knowledge. And then investing in enhanced data and better access to technology for stronger monitoring, faster communication, etc. Initiatives taken in India. So we have our GSI working for a prototype regional landslide early warning system. Then INCOIS, or Indian National Center for Ocean Information Services, setting up storm surge EWS and Indian tsunami early warning system. Then we have Defense Geoinformatics Research Establishment providing advanced warning of avalanches. On global level, we have Global Basic Observing Network. We have climate risk and early warning systems for people living in least developed countries and small island developing nations. And then we have Risk Informed Early Action Partnership to enhance collaboration. So this was all about early warning systems. Next, no government benefits or government jobs for those with more than 4 kids. Manipur. So, aiming apparently at population control, decision was taken along to establish the Manipur State Population Commission. Several other states which have taken steps in this particular sector is Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, etc. At present, India hosts around 18% of world population on only 2.45% of global surface area. And 2023, it will be overtaking China to become world's most populous nation. Arguments in favor of population control policy. So there is a overpopulation which is putting up a pressure on food, clothing, and housing, aggravating unemployment and creating the problem of disguised unemployment. It is also leading to eco degradation, and then it's putting a huge pressure on infrastructure, including both social and basic. Arguments against, so there is a reduction in working age population. There's already dipping TFR. So in urban, we have around 1.6 TFR, which is way below what government is targeting, which is 2.1. Then we have desire for male children, which could lead to unsafe abortions and female feticide, and then penalizing vulnerable section because of their inability to afford contraceptives or abortion. So this was all about the introduction of an executive action related to population control in Manipur. Because population control has came in news, remember Swaran Singh committee which suggested some fundamental duties. There was no fundamental duty about population control, right? There has been no suggestion till now about any fundamental duty which should be pertaining about population control. Only one scheme that we run from 1980s is Hum Do Hamare Do. This is the only scheme which can be pertaining to our population control. Moving on, the next article is about Second UN World Geospatial Information Congress. So it is hosted by DST and convened by United Nations Committee on of Experts on Global Geospatial Information Management. Now, convening of the World Congress arises out of mandate from ECOSOC to promote dialogue on global geospatial information management. India's geospatial economy is expected to be crossing 63,000 crore by 2025 and providing employment to more than 10 lakh people. Also, this technology is an emerging field of study, including geographic information system, remote sensing, and global positioning system. It enables us to acquire data that is referenced to Earth and use for analysis, modeling, and simulations. Applications: agriculture planning, heavy civil construction, building design, transportation, and logistics, especially with the launch of new NLP, right? These technologies becomes more and more priority. Now, the Congress also discussed about Integrated Geospatial Information Framework, IGIF, that provides a guide for developing, integrating, strengthening, and maximizing the geospatial management and related resources in all countries. The focus is on location information that is integrated with any other meaningful data to solve societal and environmental problems. And there are three main components: overarching strategy, that is sort of a pre-planning as well as planning for upcoming challenges. There's an implementation guide, and then country level action plan. So this was all about the second UN World Geospatial Information Congress being held in India by DST. The final article is about India opposing group consultation on food subsidies program at WTO. So group consultation format instead of a bilateral format was proposed by a 10-member group of developed and developing countries, including US, Australia, Canada, Brazil, Thailand, etc. No such format on consultation was given under Bali Ministerial Meeting 2013, as the group includes developed and developing countries as well as food importing and food exporting countries. Under WTO, trade distorting domestic support, or sometimes commonly called ember box support, is subjected to de minimis limits. De minimis is minimal amount of domestic support that are allowed even though they distort trade. Some public stockholding programs are considered to distort trade when they involve purchases from farmers at prices fixed by governments. In India, the example is MSP. They are used for food security purposes to purchase, stockpile, and distribute food to people in need. And to overcome this, WTO members at Bali Ministerial Meeting 2013 put in place a peace clause that said no country would be legally barred from food security programs even if subsidy breached the de minimis limits. And peace clause is an interim solution until a permanent solution was found. Now, coming back on the three types of subsidies in the sector
Uh,
of food
Sir,
securities.
Sunshine, sir,
Yes,
what
sir.
is the de minimis limit for developing countries and developed countries? Does anybody know?
10% of GDP for developing countries and 5% for developed countries.
Of
Correct.
production.
And why are developing countries opposing this thing? I guess they are demanding to be removed, right?
Yeah, because if you take US means their GDP will be beyond like 20 trillion. 5% on that 20 trillion will be much higher than the 10% of 3 trillion. So that is the issue. The
Great, sir.
way of calculating the subsidy is wrong.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
So the first is green box, which is not distorting trade. It causes minimal disruption, and plus it has to be completely sponsored by government, right? So you can imagine government investing in ICAR, the Indian Council of Agriculture Research. So government running any scheme or investing R&D related to agriculture production, these are the subsidies that would be counted in green box because they are not causing any disruption in trade. Then comes blue box. So there are broad range of subsidies allowed, but must be designed to minimize trade distortion. And again, there is no limit. Blue box example could be your Bhavantar Bhugtan Yojana or your price deficiency support. So what happens in price deficiency support? There is direct payment by government. Again, there is direct payment by government, but this direct payment of government is not arbitrary. It's specific to a field or for a purpose where farmers, because they are not getting the proper price or the mandated or fixed MSP, they're getting the difference directly by government after selling their crops in mandis. So blue box, again, it allows us for such schemes to be run, which are direct payments, but again, they have to be minimizing the trade distortion. Then comes amber box. So these are subsidies which are affecting your trade, right? As mentioned, 5% for agriculture production in developing countries and 10% for developed countries. I think they have given mixed up. India has long breached this particular value, and recently Kisan scheme, when it was launched, it was held to similar protest because Kisan also is sort of distorting this particular trade because there is no fixed area where the 6,000 rupees that the farmer is getting annually can be spent, right? So when you have an open purpose direct payment to farmer with no particular obligation where he has to spend that money, such schemes come under amber box. So this was all about the main articles. In prelims, we have RATs of the SCO. So SCO have two main components. The first is RATs and then there is Council of State. So RATs have decided on joint measures by member countries to counter threats posed by international terrorist groups operating from Afghanistan. Again, it also is deciding to organize a military exercise, Solidarity 2023, next year. It's a permanent body of SCO established in 2001 to combat terrorism, separatism, and extremism. Under RATS working relationship, member countries coordinate with each other and global organization to gather information to tackle terrorism. And also maintains a database of terrorist and terror organization from across its member countries. Then bullwhip effect. So it's an important phenomena in supply chain management. It's a small change in downstream demand near the end consumer, which causes significant change in upstream demand closer to the manufacturer. Bullwhip effects can lead to excess inventory, lost revenue, and overinvestment in production. Causes of the bullwhip effects includes poor demand forecasting, price fluctuation, lack of clear communication, etc. And increased collaboration and visibility across the chain are used to mitigate bullwhip effect. So from perspective of NLP, the bullwhip effect becomes very important. Again, in basic terms, if there's a shop that has opened near your house, right? and was open because it has to deliver your products that you order from Amazon or Flipkart, right? Now, when it was open, it was a very small shop which was catering around 10 lakh deliveries per month. What happened is that because they were seeing this much delivery, they would be expanding their storage. Because they would be expanding the storage in lieu that there would be more number of deliveries from this particular area, or it would be becoming a prime center for distribution of such items. They developed this particular shop to cater to 100 or even 10 crore, let's say 10 crore deliveries per month, right? But let's say Corona happened, or the forecast that they made for this particular shop did not account for other factors, right? And this caused this particular shop to have a significant charge being built on the manufacturer side, because they can't demand from end consumer side. And this is what the bullwhip effect is, that a minor change in end consumer leads to these particular services charging higher to the manufacturer side or in upstream demand, right? Moving on, we have Kolar fields. So Center has decided to revive coal mining at KGF in Karnataka, right? Mining was shelved earlier because the extraction had become unviable. According to an official estimate, the extracts from KGF mining are likely to fetch a value worth rupees 30,000 crore. Operated by Bharat Gold Mines Limited, a public sector undertaking, KGF was one of the world's deepest gold mines at depth of 3,000 meters. Moving on, we have Durgavati Tiger Reserve. So Madhya Pradesh Wildlife Board approved a new reserve for tigers of Panna Tiger Reserve. 1/4 of Panna Tiger Reserve will get submerged due to linking of Ken Betwa rivers. In wake of river linking project, NTCA had asked UP and MP governments to notify new tiger reserve. Durgavati Tiger Reserve will spread across Narsinghpur, Damoh and Sagar district. A green corridor linking Panna Tiger Reserve with Durgavati will be developed for the national movement of tiger to the new reserve. Other tiger reserves in MP: Kana, Bandhavgarh, Panna, Pench, Sarpoda, Sanjay, Dubri. Again, because MP is having the highest number of tigers, as well as, remember, the national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserve, these are all notified by state governments. NTCA is only there to recommend. NTA does not approve any sort of proposal or any sort of project, right? All such notifications or approvals are in the hands of state governments. Moving on, we have exoplanets. So an exoplanet is any planet beyond our solar system. Most orbit other stars, but free-floating exoplanets called rogue planets orbit galactic center and are untethered to any star. Scientists have now detected barium in the upper atmosphere of two giant exoplanets, WASP 76b and WASP 121b, for the first time. These are ultra-hot Jupiters, a class of hot gaseous planets that matches the size of Jupiter. But they have short orbital periods, unlike Jupiter. Most of the exoplanets discovered so far are in relatively small region of Milky Way galaxy. Next, we have radiocarbon dating. So a plea seeking radiocarbon dating, also referred as carbon dating in Gyan Vapi Mosque case was dismissed. It is to establish the age of organic materials, things that were once living. Living things have carbon in them in various forms. It is based on the fact that carbon-14, an isotope of carbon, is radioactive and decays at a well-known rate known as half-life. It provides objective age estimation by measuring amount of C14 present in the sample and comparing this against an internationally used reference standard. And it's reliable up to 40 to 50,000 years. Then we have athlete biological passport. So National Anti-Doping Agency and NDTL are hosting third edition of World Anti-Doping Agency or WADA ABP Symposium. Now ABP, generally these are only called biological passport, but for this article we are calling it as athlete biological passport. So ABP is an anti-doping tool that monitors selected biological variables over time to reveal effects of doping rather than attempting to detect doping substances or method itself. It works against doping through enhanced target testing and analysis, investigation, deterrence, and as an indirect evidence for use of prohibited methods of substances. Then we have some exercise in news. So there was a Prasthan exercise, which is an offshore security exercise conducted under aegis of Headquarters Eastern Naval Command, conducted every 6 months to integrate efforts for all maritime stakeholders involved in offshore defense. Then we have PowerX, which was conducted by CERTIN in collaboration with Power CSATs, or Computer Security Incident Response Teams in power sector, for power sector utilities. And then finally, we have IB Summer. So it's a joint multinational maritime exercise among the Indian, Brazilian, and South African navies. Finally, places in news. So Yemen, capital Sana'a. Right. India has expressed its disappointment over non-agreement between warring parties in Yemen on extension of truce. Political boundary. So Yemen is a desert country in Middle East on southwestern tip of Arabian Peninsula, sharing its border with Saudi Arabia in north and Oman in east. Then it's surrounded by Red Sea, Bab al-Mandeb, and Gulf of Aden, sharing its maritime borders with Djibouti, Eritrea, and Somalia. Geographical features. So there is no permanent river, as most of its northern part is covered by Rub al-Khali Desert, which is Arabic name for empty quarter. And then highest point is Jabab al-Nabi Shuab. Then we have Galapagos Islands in Ecuador. So according to a recent study, cold ocean currents protect Galapagos Islands from global warming. They are volcanic archipelago situated west of Ecuador in the Pacific Ocean, located at the confluence of 3 ocean currents, which are Humboldt, Panama Flow, and Cromwell Current. There are 19 islands, group of 19 islands, which are home to several endangered species and designated as UNESCO World Heritage Site, and it includes land iguana, giant tortoise, and many types of finch, inspiring theory of evolution by natural selection, or many types of finch which inspired the theory of evolution by natural selection for Charles Darwin. So this was all about today's current affairs.